If you've been a One Piece fan for more than 10 minutes, you've probably been asked, so dude, what's your favorite arc? Which is understandable, because One Piece isn't just a story, it's a chain of islands, each one with its own set of characters, style, and emotional impact that together create the narrative. But not all arcs are created equal. Some are quick island hops, while others are global events that will be written about in history books for centuries to come. These are the 7 levels of One Piece arcs. Level 1. Is that even an arc? The arcs that make you stop and ask, does this even count? These are the blink and you miss it stops in One Piece. The islands the crew visits, hang around for a few chapters, and then immediately leaves behind. There's no grand villain, no massive fight, and usually no dramatic ending. Instead, these arcs exist purely for vibes. Take the island of rare animals. The Straw Hats show up, meet Gaimon, learn a quick life lesson about dreams and disappointment, and then they're gone. No power-ups, no huge build-up for a coming arc, just world flavor and a surprisingly emotional moment, packed into a handful of pages. Most lists of all the arcs don't even feature this one, because of how short it is. Poor Gaimon. His treasure was empty and he can't even get his own arc. He did somehow manage to bag his soulmate Zorfunkel though, so there's always that, I guess. You could also take Reverse Mountain, where the crew doesn't even really stop. It's the only arc where the villain is just gravity and a very large depressed whale. It's just long enough to introduce Laboon, drop some early Grand Line lore, and emotionally scar us with a whale backstory before pushing the Straw Hats forward. Even Return to Sabaody fits here. It's really important, but it's over almost as soon as it begins. The arc exists to reintroduce the crew, flex their growth, and say yeah, we're different now. Then it immediately hands the story off to something bigger. I mean, when the main antagonist is Demalo Black, you know it ain't gonna be a long one. Level 1 exists because One Piece is a journey first, and a battle shonen second. Not every island needs a crazy villain. Sometimes it just needs to exist long enough to make the world feel real. Level 2. One-off wonders. This is where One Piece truly finds its footing. Level 2 arcs are fully self-contained stories with real villains, real stakes, and clean resolutions, but they aren't part of some massive saga. Each arc usually revolves around one central conflict, and once it's resolved, the crew moves on with very little fallout. A perfect example is Arlong Park. Luffy doesn't overthrow a government or expose a global conspiracy, he just beats a tyrant, frees a village, and cements what One Piece is really about, fighting for someone else's freedom. When it ends, the world doesn't change, but the crew does. Even though it isn't part of some massive saga, it's still seen as one of the best arcs by many, and people often credit Arlong Park for really hooking them on One Piece. Most of the East Blue arcs live here: Orange Town, Surf Village, Baratie, and Log Town. These arcs introduce core themes, recruit new crew members, and define the emotional backbone of the series. This is when the villains had simple dreams. Kuro didn't want to conquer the world. He wanted to retire with good health insurance, but he was too stupid to even reach that dream. As One Piece went on, arcs like this became rare. The story shifted toward long, interconnected sagas where everything bleeds into the next island. That's why Long Ring Longland feels so strange. It's like a throwback to this older structure. Oda got tired of all the stakes and needed a quick dodgeball break. It's a weird, self-contained detour with no massive consequences, dropped into a story that had already outgrown that format. I'm not sure the content of the arc was amazing, but it was still nice to get a break from the long sagas and go back to the old format. Level 2 exists because before One Piece could build a world, it had to build a crew. These arcs were needed to get Luffy some new Nakama before he could topple governments. Level 3. Saga Builders. This is where One Piece starts playing the long game. Level 3 arcs might feel smaller on the first watch, but they exist for one purpose: to build and prepare you for what's coming next. These arcs are packed with foreshadowing, quiet lore drops, and introductions that don't seem huge at the time, but end up mattering hundreds of chapters later. Take Vivi's reveal on Whiskey P. Yaya belongs here. On the surface, it's a short arc about dreams, but underneath that, it introduces Sky Island, sets up Blackbeard, and reminds us of the core philosophy of One Piece. You don't realize how important it is until much later. Or Sue, an arc with almost no traditional villain. The only villain we got was Yak, and that was in a flashback. Instead, it drops world-shaking information. Road poneglyphs, the Kosoki clan. Nothing really explodes here, but everything still changes. Little Garden and Punk Hazard also follow this pattern. New factions, new threats, each one nudging the story towards something far bigger than itself. Level 3 exists because One Piece is built on delayed gratification. These arcs doesn't hit hardest when they happen. They hit hardest when you realize Oda planned them years in advance. And without them, we couldn't get Level 4, Saga Climaxes. This is where everything pays off. Level 4 arcs are the final act of a saga, the moment where all the build-up, setup and tension finally explodes at once. The central conflict that's been brewing for dozens, sometimes hundreds of chapters is finally settled, usually with the defeat of a major antagonist who's been looming in the background for a really long time. Alabasta wasn't just about beating Crocodile, it's the finale of Vivi's long journey. The first time Straw Hats openly defy a system backed by the world government. It's the moment One Piece proves it can handle large-scale political stakes. And then there's Skypiea. It wraps up everything Yaya hinted at, and the idea that impossible places really do exist. What these arcs share is a sharp before and after line. When they end, the crew isn't the same, and neither is the world around them. Level 4 exists because this is where One Piece proved the Straw Hats can topple threats far bigger than themselves. Level 5, New World Epics. This is One Piece at maximum scale, where the New World fully reveals its true nature, a battlefield ruled by emperors. Level 5 is defined by Yonko level threats. Even though Doflamingo wasn't an emperor, Dressrosa fits this level perfectly, because he was written like one. His insane crew, deep underworld connections, control over a massive kingdom, and the sheer length and scope of the arc sets it far apart from smaller saga climaxes like Alabasta. The story pulls in warlords, marines, revolutionaries, and the black market all at once, creating a web so massive that only 3 to 4 days in One Piece time took over 2 years to cover. The fall of Doflamingo doesn't just end an arc, it sends shockwaves across the seas, and no other arc manages to depict the terror of an emperor like Whole Cake Island. Here the goal was his survival. Big Mom's territory, her crew, and her influence show just how untouchable an emperor can be. Then Wano detonates everything. Multiple Yonko, the worst generation, and samurai all collide in a single war that permanently reshapes global power. These arcs are long, dense, and heavy, packed with characters, politics, and history. Level 5 exists because this is where the Straw Hats stop merely surviving the world of monsters and begin confronting the very forces that rule it. Level 6, the World Breakers. This is the level where One Piece stops feeling like a pirate adventure and starts feeling like global history in motion. Level 6 arcs are the pillars holding the entire series up. If you remove any one of these, the world of One Piece collapses into something unrecognizable. We're talking about moments where pirates, marines, the world government, and emperors all collide, leading to consequences that change the map forever. Take Enies Lobby. This didn't just give us a power-up, it transformed the Straw Hats from a loose group of friends into an unbreakable unit willing to declare war on the entire world. Sabaody Archipelago also sits here, and I know what you're thinking. How is a short arc like Sabaody ranked above a 150 chapter epic like Wano? Because Wano is a victory, but Sabaody is a structural collapse. Here's the reality. Without Sabaody, the story ends. If Kuma doesn't step in, the crew sails to the new world and get erased by the first Yonko they see, Kid style. Sabaody didn't just humble the crew, it saved them by breaking them. In Wano, the Straw Hats freed one country. In Sabaody, the entire trajectory of the series changed. Then you have Marineford, and that wasn't just a battle, it's a historical event that ended an era and rewrites the power structure of every sea on the planet. And the most recently finished arc, Egghead, did the unthinkable, pulling back the curtain on the Void Century only to pull it back again. Vegapunk really had to edge us. It also revealed the power of the Gorosei, dragging the world's deepest secrets into the present and really telling us that the final saga is underway. Level 6 exists because these are the moments where One Piece proves it isn't just a journey, it's a world on the brink of collapse. Level 7, Ragnarok. This is it, the conclusion of the entire journey, the story's ultimate destination. Level 7 is a realm we can only speculate about, because we don't know exactly what it will look like. It's where the One Piece will finally be revealed, the secrets of the Void Century uncovered, and the fate of the world decided once and for all. I had to borrow a term from my own country's mythology for the name of this level. Ragnarok is the legendary end of the world in Norse mythology, the final battle between gods and monsters, where the old order falls and a new world rises from the ashes. It feels perfect for this level, because the final arc of One Piece will surely be a world-shaping reckoning, with the current order falling completely. This is when all of Luffy's allies, enemies and the forces of the world will collide in a climax that will permanently reshape history. Every mystery, every promise and every inherited will reaches its conclusion here. We don't yet know if it will be a grand voyage to Laugh Tale, or a massive war, or maybe something we forgot to consider. When we finally arrive here, it will totally break the internet. One Piece will undoubtedly take over the world for at least a couple of months, and it will be really hard to avoid any spoilers. I might sound like a delusional fanboy, but I really hope I'm right. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy this one as well.